So I was walking down the street, and someone walked up to me and said, got this group that we're trying to bring together and want to talk about something really, really serious that really, really applies. And I said, what's this all about? And they said, it's OpenStack. I'm like, what the heck is OpenStack? And who are these people? But anyway, I'm here. So, brought together this group of folks, great group of folks. By the way, I don't think you can take the chairs home even though they're comfy, so enjoy it while it lasts. This is your 5 minutes of fame. I did the math. We have 30 minutes, 5 presenters. That's 6 minutes apiece. But because I'm talking, they're losing. So you're working on 5.5 minutes, and if I keep my mouth open, it'll be down to 5 minutes. This will be a quick panel. All right, so we're talking about the operational challenges running OpenStack. 30 minutes, hard hitting. We're going to get right to the meat of it. First up, quick introductions. Start at the end and write down. Remember, you only get a couple minutes apiece for the whole panel.
You began by saying it's a serious conversation. I don't know why I'm up here then, but I'm.
Hey, buddy, I'm with you.
Okay. So my name is Devananda. I started the Ironic project. It's the part of OpenStack that basically turns your hardware with no hypervisor into behaving like a VM. Like you can boot an instance through Nova and get it on a physical machine.
Hey everybody, Aaron Delp, Director of Technical Solutions at SolidFire.
Hi there, Subbu, Allamaraju, been involved with OpenStack since 2012. Been at eBay, built the eBay and PayPal clouds, was behind getting 100% PayPal migration to OpenStack and working on eBay right now.
Is that a beer bottle? Okay, just checking.
It's just water.
Edgar.
Edgar Magana. I'm the Cloud Operations Architect for Workday. I'm also core member of one of the projects which is not a challenge to operate, which is Neutron.
I'm Sumeet Singh. I'm the founder at AppFormix, and we build tools for monitoring OpenStack.
Great. All right, so that's the panel. I'm Tim Crawford. I advise CIOs. I'm a former CIO myself, and so I see a lot of different enterprises, a lot of different vendor solutions, but this isn't about me. It's about these folks. So we'll get to some questions, but let's kind of dig in. So what are some of the first things that you need to think about? When you're thinking about OpenStack from an operational standpoint, if you were to kind of drill right into some of the heavy-hitting aspects that most people don't want to talk about, but we need to talk about, what would that be? Who's up? Aaron.
I want to hear his answer.
No pressure.
I think for me, I grew last 3 years, spent a lot of time on OpenStack, learned a lot about productizing operations, what it takes to run OpenStack as a software, not as an IT DevOps problem. I think that's been my passion. And
So let me ask you about that. So that's a very different mindset methodology. I mean, if you're an IT organization, does that mean that you have to kind of shift your thinking to more product based?
I absolutely think so. I think you have to think of this is a software. This is a very complex piece of software, many pieces to it. You have to think of it like a software engineering problem and approach it like a software engineering problem. How you deploy it, how do you manage it, monitor it, upgrade it. Everything has to be a software problem. If you don't approach it like that, this is not for you.
Okay. Devananda.
So for the various groups I talk with, it turns the IT group from we're running some infrastructure and some folks are developing applications to even inside a company, the IT team suddenly becomes a service provider and has to change how they think of what they're doing to being a service provider.
So I'm going to challenge that a bit because, that's not a new concept with OpenStack. That's something that we've been talking about in IT organizations for a while. I'm going to switch to this side, so get ready with your answers. This is the lightning round. So why is it different this time? Why is it different with OpenStack?
I don't know. The experience that we had Workday was very simple. You have an infra team that they know what to do. They are very good at what they're doing. And then you have a bunch of software engineers that they try to explain them what to do it better. That's not going to work. So the biggest challenge that we have with making the software engineers too big thing, too big in reality, too big in racks, in scalability, in security terms, and make the infra team to think about software, not just a bunch of scripts that actually they can live with it.
Okay, so distro, individual components, which way do I go and why? I mean, we heard earlier, distros are dead, right?
Well, before you get to that, let me just add another piece to it too. Another reason why why OpenStack and this is different is, in my mind, the consumer has changed, right? Previously, it was really a line of business and an application that kind of funneled down somehow, somewhere to some kind of very static infrastructure. Well, when I say the consumer has changed because really the developers are driving now. And cloud is nothing more than a fancy term for a dynamic API-driven infrastructure. And OpenStack is the attempt to solve that very specific problem to a changing consumer market internally.
So who best to operate OpenStack? Dev, ops, both?
I'm gonna toss one word out there. Instead of software-defined infrastructure, developer-defined infrastructure. That's what it is.
Okay. Go. What? Mike?
That kind of hurts because that's a mistake that is happening in some of the infra teams. The software developer guys, they don't know how things work at the scale. That's the biggest problem that we have. Security requirements. If you try to apply security requirements to OpenStack, realistic security requirements, good luck with that. We are having a nightmare with that, and that's a lot of other companies are struggling with. Keystone, all the TLS connections to the endpoints, encryption to the database, a lot of things that has been required by our security teams that OpenStack doesn't provide by default.
If I can add to that, I think where the disconnect lies between the dev and the ops is that the APIs that exist don't enable the model. For example, you could have the security groups, you could have the benefit if there was a way for the operator to specify what their requirements were and then for the developer to live within those requirements. The fundamental problem is that in the new organizations, while we're enabling OpenStack for this new architecture, for this new cloud, the model between the dev and the ops is still trouble tickets. It's not APIs. The APIs that exist are insufficient. You don't get all the information is not made available to the developers in the way that they can consume, and that's the big disconnect.
Okay, grenade time. So is the problem not technology? Is the problem culture? Go.
Technology. It is technology.
I'm biased to see it as a technology problem,
Subbu.
not as a people problem.
It's a people.
It's technology, I think.
It's technology. Two for tech. Edgar.
What about both?
Okay. Change your mind. Change your mind.
So there's a great article, I'm going to totally space who wrote it right now, that I read recently, on how the team structure, literally what people in what positions on a technical team, informs the resulting software. And I'll stop there.
Aaron?
No, I'm C, all of the above, without a doubt. I don't think either one is perfect at this point, and there is a lot of work to do on both ends.
So this kind of gets back to what Subbu was talking about earlier, right? This is not your traditional IT engagement. This is more of a product approach, right? It's the integration. There's some flow over time, right?
Absolutely. That's what I keep saying. It is not an IT problem. It is a software engineering problem. It is a distributed systems problem. That's how you should approach it.
Okay. So merging use cases. How are we going to get through some of these challenges? And let's talk about some of the emerging use cases of how people are dealing with the challenges as they're going through their operational experiences with OpenStack. Who's up first?
Use cases. You need to understand your use cases. When I joined this company, they didn't know why they need to use OpenStack, so we started from the use cases. Then requirements. The most important things are what your infrastructure is capable of and what are the requirements in security and operations. So once you have all that in paper and very well understood, you go to your CI/CD environments. Do not ever look of things like dev stack or something like that, you think like what you're going to deploy in production, you start. Even in a laptop, you can do it. But always keeping in mind that that is just the base of how things are going to run in production.
Okay, so let me challenge that for a minute. So that sounds easier said than done, right? So
Took a lot of time.
How did you do that? How do you get into that? I mean, is that a grassroots effort, bottom up, or do you need that executive support, or both?
You need both, but actually it was very hard at the beginning. Actually, in this team, it was it's been almost 2 years and a half. The first year and a half, it was a total failure, and we accept that failure. The last time, so what we did to make it better is to start from scratch. A new version, the newest at that time, now is old, and trying to focus on how things will run in production. So we actually deploy everything. We're using cookbooks from Chef. We're actually deploying everything as in a small scale as we will do in the data center. And now as we're getting better results. Still, scalability is the major problem in OpenStack from my point of view.
Okay.
So to emerging use cases, I'm seeing interest in, not necessarily yet in production, but interest in taking OpenStack services and putting them together in different ways. So not just an infrastructure, not just a compute infrastructure cloud or an object storage cloud, but other combinations of services. Some of the new ones that are spinning up that aren't really well known yet, it's kind of early rate, and some of the old ones.
But so is that suggesting then that we're going for the fringe of the projects as opposed to the core? The core becomes kind of the de facto, but
the
we're
first
starting to pull in the fringe.
That folks getting into OpenStack, who are looking at like, I'm going to go deploy OpenStack, as someone down there couldn't see who was saying.
Edgar.
First define your use case, then go look at the projects and figure out what combination of projects meet that use case. Then build it. Don't just assume you need all of them.
Okay. Yep.
We haven't seen it that way. I think we saw it more like a as a service approach for the primitives, which is compute, storage, network, and they need to be accessible through APIs. I think to me, once you settle on that, the use case is something that happens on top of it. You may change SKUs, you may change your network architecture to support different use cases, but I think it's getting and standardizing certain infrastructure primitives as that's where I think there's a lot more value in the core as that cohesive set of components.
Okay, so I'm hearing three things come up in our discussion: security, scaling, network. Challenges. How do we work through those?
There's one more.
Yep.
Making it simple.
Simple.
Yeah. I mean, so a lot of organizations we are working with, they want the whole experience to be simpler. They want to move towards more of a self-service IT model. They do want to treat OpenStack in the product mentality, right? And just have it be consumable in a way that's simple directly by the developers.
Okay, so how do you get from here to there? I mean, walk me through the steps of how you get from here to there.
So a lot of focus in OpenStack has been on how do I take this software and turn it into a production cluster. But once that's done, how do you ensure that cluster keeps running, right? How do you make it consumable by the users? We need to think about that next set of APIs that enable that experience for the users, right? We need to think about the APIs that the users can use within their applications to define how they want the infrastructure to behave.
Yeah, I want to take that. I think this is exactly the point that my colleague Ashwin was making this morning, is that as the IaaS layer, OpenStack is doing its best in providing that primitives. I think a layer above, whether it be Kubernetes, Mesos, or some other PaaS layer, is what is giving that developer-facing abstraction. Because all developers want is that run my app in a given desired state, and the developer defines the state, or your ops team defines the state, that desired state, and you need a platform to run it. It's not OpenStack, it's something in between that application and the developer, that is the infrastructure that is providing that declarative layer.
Okay, so questions from the audience. Get your questions ready. We're going to circle back out to you in just a minute. Aaron, you've you had a. Yeah, go.
Quick question. So you mentioned all of the problems, and I think when you said went to the developer's environment, and that kind of went against the grain of what everyone's trying to do to make it enterprise ready. I think the biggest problem that drives all of the other ones is documentation. That's my own personal opinion. So I'm not a fully fledged engineer anymore, but I can get most things working with enough research and compare, say, OpenStack with Amazon Web Services, which is, in the cloud, that's what a lot of people are using. You can find every single answer, pretty much every single question related to Amazon Web Services. You've got a problem, you need to work through a particular solution. The documentation's there. Some of it's from Amazon, some of it's from the community. I think there's a big gap, even though it's improved a lot. The documentation for OpenStack gives maybe architects, people that are in between engineers and the business, an understanding to then move forward is having good, solid, reliable documentation. I don't know whether that.
Yeah, I was actually having that same conversation about some of the container projects and sub projects in the last couple days.
I think it's a good thought, but if you potentially look behind and see what happens at Amazon, I'm pretty sure their internal documentation about how their IaaS cluster is running is just the same as OpenStack.
So fundamentally, OpenStack isn't a single company producing a single product for you to consume. That's one of the main reasons why it seems so different, right? If you're consuming OpenStack from a distro, presumably that distro gives you some documentation how to use it. If you're consuming it from a service provider, like we've heard from earlier, that service provider should either give you documentation or teach you how to use their implementation of OpenStack. But it's going to behave differently. It's an unfortunate thing right now. I think they should all be exactly the same, but there are some differences. And so the documentation, if the OpenStack community or the foundation were to produce a single canonical thing and say, this is OpenStack, and document it that way, but it's okay to change that, well, now you're going to also be confused. So there isn't a perfect solution there.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the opportunities in contributing to OpenStack is actually to contribute to the documentation.
Absolutely.
It's not just code.
Right. Let me take a little bit that. Yeah, documentation is very important. As developers, we don't have all the visibility that as users you will have. So actually, is the place of the operators and the users to actually help us to fix the documentations. I've been driving the networking guy for a while with other folks, and we ended up having 6 different networking scenarios, and we're not covering everything. Yesterday and the day before on the operators meetup, we were talking about networking models, and every single operator, they have a different networking model. It's impossible for a community to actually cover every single of them. So it's up to the user to come back and contribute in that area.
So how do you reconcile that, right? You've got the 6 models. I mean, you've stated the problem, but how do you work through that solution?
Well, as an operator, you need to pick up the one that actually will fulfill your use case and your other requirements and just focus on that one.
Okay.
So I want to say that this is actually one of my nitpicks with the OpenStack. Projects like OpenStack is that these are designed for everyone to come and work on it, and so there's too much choice. When you have too much choice, no 2 deployments look alike, and you have these kind of problems. I think that's probably I would reduce choice. I mean, good or bad? I think it is good to say. It is bad, I think.
Well, so let me rephrase your question a bit. Is choice always good or bad? At what point is choice good versus can be detrimental?
Right, and what you're looking at there is at what point does the choice actually fragment and slow down the ecosystem? Mm-hmm. And I'll be completely honest, I get torn at times on that exact answer because, of course, solid fire being storage, if you just take the Cinder project, which I'm more familiar with, we went from 10, 15 drivers at the start to 90 plus drivers now. And anytime you go to bake anything in, it just gets harder and harder and harder. And you have, I'm going to say friction, right? There's more friction with the advancements of it because, to his point, how do you document everything? How does the documentation keep up with the innovation and the development? That is absolutely a challenge going forward. And OpenStack almost becomes, instead of a product, Or instead of something that is a simple blueprint, it becomes so large, it becomes everyone's a unique snowflake, so it is a platform to build snowflakes.
But doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose?
Depends on the snowflake you want
Okay.
to build.
Hey, don't compare your snowflake to my snowflake.
The goal that I would see of OpenStack, as we've all been working on, is to have a consistent snowflake on the top, right? For users, for consumers of those APIs, to give them one experience. But as an operator, or as an enterprise installing, buying hardware and running it, underneath that, I might customize OpenStack to meet my needs, or to meet my network topology, or to use hardware I already have, or to provide a different SLA. But on top, to the developer, it should be one.
I
completely agree
hear a
with that
tweak
view.
coming out of this.
I completely agree with that view. If we can have the right APIs, the APIs can be self-describing, and that's what the users use. If you need to tinker with the code, I mean, we could potentially make the code base even more modular to make it easier for more people to contribute. But the APIs is where it all is. If they are well defined and stay the same, consistently stay the same, then the users would at least be happy.
Okay, so user experience, consistency, currency. What do we do about upgrading? Let's talk about upgrading. We don't. Oh my gosh.
How about logging?
We
How about
don't.
traceability? How about all the things an operator needs to keep a running system running in the face of problems? You get paged at 3 a.m. because someone's VM crashed. How do you figure out what server it was on and trace that down and figure out why that server failed and fix it? Those are operational concerns.
So how do you deal with that within the OpenStack framework? I mean, because it's very different than a commercial offering.
Yeah. Well, and I'll add this too. I'm not going to offer an answer, unfortunately. I completely admit that.
Why are you on this panel again?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
No. Here's
checking.
coming out of I used to do data center operations way back when, and the way I look at it is this: OpenStack for the longest time was just striving red light, green light. Does it work? Does it not work? Right? We're at that point. We've solved that problem. Right? But the problem with it is to your point, how do you take red light, green light and turn that into it's always green all the time, no matter what? That is an infinitely harder problem. And it has not been solved yet. It hasn't. And that's why you still hear stories of the only way to upgrade is stand something up next to it. Right? And that's right, exactly. And I would love to hear actually his opinion of all of this.
I thought it was 50 Shades of Green and 50 Shades of Red.
I mean, I just want to give an. I want to
Come
give
on,
an
that was
analogy,
worth a laugh. Jeez. I'll be here all week. Try the veal.
I want to give a simple example. Like, you don't put up a google.com, yahoo.com and don't know how to upgrade the site because the content changed next day. You build automation from the ground up to update any software we do. So it's not different for OpenStack. The point is that a lot of people realize it after the fact. They put OpenStack using DevStack, Puppet, some distro, whatever. And they haven't thought about, what should I do tomorrow? Like, what happens tomorrow? Because change is inevitable. You need to prepare for that. I think if you're not prepared for it, this is not for you.
Okay, so
I want to talk about that. Yeah, you have to be prepared for that. But I kind of feel like OpenStack from the development point of view, it's running too fast, much more faster than what the operators can actually handle. Every 6 months we have a cycle. I was just laughing at the Neutron, my own team, because we were having a MySQL development summit a week after the summit. I was like, what? And just because we are late already for the features that we want to release for the next cycle, it's impossible that operators can catch up with all those kind of things. The documentation is not even there. We are actually writing documentation 2 cycles after a feature is there. So I probably, for the first 2-3 years, was fine. I think we should start slowing down and focus on scalability, performance, more testing, things like that.
So
you just received both applause and violent head shakes of approval over here, just so you know.
In one
I know you can't
statement.
see us on that side of the podium, but just letting you know.
So are you suggesting that innovation in OpenStack should slow down or stop so that the rest can catch up?
No, I'm suggesting that we shouldn't add so many features. We should make sure that the features that we have and the operators or users they really need to be stable and production ready.
Ooh, gauntlet
And then we
has
add
been
for the next
thrown
one.
down.
Do you really want me to take that?
Senator to the left and senator to the right.
Because I've said this before, the reason things are moving so quickly, the reason features keep getting added, is vendors are pushing products. They're trying to add new cool shinies. What we need to do what you just asked for, what has to happen is distros and operators need to come in and set the goals, not vendors. The investment for development has to come from a different place.
And actually, I think if I recall the poll in here, there were a lot of distro manufacturers in the audience. Senator to the right, and then we'll take a question.
So I have been an operator in the past life. I was running part of operations at Azure. And you have to have a strategy in place for every possible outcome.
Okay.
You can't be in this mode that you can't upgrade. You have to be ready to upgrade at any time of the day.
Okay. So before we get to the lightning round, with each of the panelists, question from the audience.
So kind of building on what you just mentioned, I am all for capitalism. That's why I love parts of this.
Go money.
Go money. No, seriously, go money. Go making the firm better. But at the same time, having so many different commercial entities who are applying so much both knowledge and money towards driving this forward, but are trying to drive some differential advantage on their own, that is valuable. It's important in a commercial society, a market such as ours. But I see that as a detriment that we can't use all this to drive forward towards a common, be it stability, be it scalability, be it ease of install, et cetera. You touched on it, you started to go there. I'm surprised more people didn't clap. But from that standpoint, like, how much of a detriment is that?
So you're really promoting the rally cry for can't we all get along, right? Can't we all kind of work toward a central...
Can't we all get along while trying to help all our vendor partners make a buck?
Great, great. Thoughts?
It's incredibly difficult to maintain downstream divergence right now. If more projects had more declarative plugin models that didn't require folks to push upstream, but supported the vendor value add that vendors want, and that's what their investors are investing in, if that was supported through a better southbound API layer, more people could focus on the stability of the core of each project, evolving the northbound API and operationalizing the whole thing, while vendors still have their value over here. That's the architecture I took with Ironic, and I think Neutron's moving towards there, but it's an older project taking more time. We're moving in that direction, but it's slow.
All right, we have come to that illustrious lightning round time. Senator distinguished to the right, you start us off. What is that takeaway nugget? Get your pens and paper ready. Distinguished nugget that we can use as a takeaway. Operational challenges in OpenStack. Go.
So we got to focus on the APIs. We got to get them right. We got to get them stable. We got to make them as self-describing as possible. Then we got to make sure that the developers have the ability to get from the infrastructure what the running state of the infrastructure is, that they have the ability to monitor the infrastructure, and all of that using APIs. And that's what will make this whole OpenStack much better.
Great. Edgar.
Very short one. Be engaged with the community. Don't fight all the fights by yourself. Engage with the community.
I'm actually surprised we haven't heard more about community. Subbu.
If you're operating OpenStack, productize operations before doing anything else.
Great.
I'm going to actually take it a slightly different way and just say OpenStack needs to be a duck. And what I mean by that is, to his point, above the surface, cool, calm, collect it, looks great. Below the surface, who cares, right? Kicking like hell, making things happen, right? And that's what's not happening today. Right now, it's too much kicking everywhere.
Great.
Treat your hardware like cattle, not pets.
Ooh, cattle pets. So I was saying earlier, let's not take that too far and go to shelters and zoos with the analogy. That could be bad. All right, thanks for playing, everyone. Please give my contestants here a round of applause.